Hi, this is Tim Dart with The Beat, chatting with comic creator Daniel Warren Johnson about his new creator-owned series, The Moon is Following Us. How are you doing?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm good. So I have to ask, as a fun little icebreaker that kind of relates to the themes of parents and children, as a parent yourself, have you watched Bluey, and if so, how much?
I've watched Bluey like 4 times through, all the way, for every season. It's one of my absolute favorites. I think I would watch it even if I didn't have kids.
I'm with you on that. So the reason, of course, I bring it up is because the series, The Moon is Following Us, was inspired by experience with your own daughter.
Yep.
Do you want to explain how the series came about?
Yeah, well, first it really did start with my relationship with the artist on the book, Riley Rossmo. So he's drawing about 80% of it. I'm drawing the other 20 and writing it. So we're splitting art duties, but I met him in 2015, and we've been friends ever since, very close friends. And he was working at DC for a while, and he didn't really have time to do an image book. So when things finally opened up for him, I had kind of already had an idea in the works. And he has an 8-year-old daughter, and I have a 6-year-old daughter, and we were going to the park one day. My 4-year-old daughter at the time looked up into the sky. It was the early evening, and the moon was low in the sky. And she goes, "Dad, there's the moon." And then we're swinging swings and swinging on the swings. And she points up, the moon's a little higher. She goes, "Dad, there's the moon again." And when we walk back home to our house, there's a bridge in Chicago that we walk over every single time we go back and forth from the park. And we were on that bridge, and she pointed up at the sky, and she said, "Dad, the moon is following us." And I was like, God, that is the name of a book if I've ever heard one. So
It's very tangentially related. I'm a big Mike Mignola fan. He's written and drawn so many great stories. There's one, I'm sure you've read it or familiar with it, The Magician and the Snake.
Yes.
Yes, I was reading about The Moon is Following Us, just reminded me how that story came about. Literally just a walk with his daughter, and she just came up with a story. I just love, I'm sure your daughter or kids, they have crazy ideas, but this specific one, I'm curious, love to know anything else that inspired other work, or was this really the first time?
I think the kind of experience of parenting and loving somebody so deeply as your own child is something that has really inspired me in general for the past 6 years. But specifically, it's not like too specific, because she didn't really give me a story. It was this kind of moment that was almost kind of spiritual in nature. It just felt a little otherworldly, and I just knew I had to capitalize on it somehow. And I like to make books that I don't know. They just say write what you know, and that's what I'm trying to do. That's the short answer to your question.
You write and draw. I know some of my favorite creators, they do both. Like you just mentioned Mike Mignola, then you have so many others like John Byrne. I've always been fascinated and interested to see when they work on a project as just a writer as opposed to drawing and writing. It just reminds me of similar to films and even films, like actors who become directors.
Sure.
You kind of have to, you don't want to act when actors direct other actors, you don't want to give them a line reading or be too controlling. So you're obviously writing Transformers. Jorge Corano is drawing it. I'd love to know the experience of just writing and without being too possessive or controlling with your artists.
Yeah. Well, a big part of that kind of avoiding, over explaining or being possessive is really knowing what an artist brings to the table, and I'm trying to cater to their strengths in tone and in what the story contains and what actually happens. So with Riley, I knew he really loved fantastical things, crazy things. It's just the vibe was perfect for Riley to do the book. And then with Jorge, he actually, I think, in some ways catered his style to work well with the Transformers. And both Riley and Jorge have just kind of upped their games in each respective book, and they basically just made my life very easy. They make my job very easy. So I try and stay as hands-off as possible. My scripts are pretty pretty sparse. There's not a lot there. I mean, just enough to get people an understanding of the story and what's happening. And any important beats I make sure to write down, and the dialogue is very set. But otherwise, I just kind of tell them to go crazy and have fun.
I'm tempted to assume the characters in The Moon is Flying West are based on your own nuclear family. I'd love to know if that's the case. If you could tell us about the characters in the series?
Yeah, so it's a husband and wife. It's Sam and Duncan. Sam is the mom, Duncan the dad. And the husband and wife relationship is very much, they're like kind of polar opposites. Duncan is very reserved. He doesn't like necessarily to take action right away, whereas Sam is very much a go-getter and is the first one to throw a punch. And these two kind of conflicting personalities, something that they have to work through in order to be able to rescue their daughter, Penny. But to be totally fair, while I'm taking a ton of stuff from my own life, you know, like the bridge that we crossed to go to the park that's in The Moon is following us, like picture for picture. But as far as the characters go, they're more like figments or parts of my relationship rather than the whole. So I almost couldn't tell you where the characters end and I begin. They're just extensions of myself.
So right now, you're razor hot or razor sharp right now on Transformers,
Yeah.
the licensed property, but you came from the indie creator-owned side of
Yes.
things. I love creators who can work in both. I think the last few years we've definitely seen a growth of the creator-owned independent books, but at the same time, with these licensed properties, there is a lot of creative fulfillment. To know how you approach both and if you have preference?
Well, I do love both. I think my preference probably would be to do creator-owned stuff, if I'm being totally honest. That being said, my well is only so, or my jug is only full with so much inspiration. So after working on a few creator-owned projects, I find myself having to go down, when I'm down at the like 0 mark, I have to find maybe a licensed project that I can get into, get my teeth into, and you know, have an experience with, and kind of take a break. Working on Transformers is like a vacation, because the toys are already the toys are already made. They're in the box, and I just have to play with them.
The focus, obviously, I couldn't help talking about Transformers, but I'd love to know. Are you in for the long run, or do you have a set number of issues you're staying on and then have to leave?
As far as I know, I'm doing 25 issues.
25 issues.
So I wrote and drew 6, and then whatever 25 minus the other.
Yeah, it's bad.
The other 19 I am just writing.
Writing, okay. So no the decision then to not only draw the first 6, how that came about. And
Well, they wanted it to be monthly, and I can't do a monthly book. It just would kill me.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can do 6, and they're like, let's do the first arc, rock and roll.
any other projects besides Transformers and The Moon is Flying West that you have brewing?
I do. I can't talk about them yet. Some more creator-owned stuff, but something that just came out is Space Mullet, my old webcomic that I first started in 2012. That's been collected again by Image Comics. It's got 5 chapters in it. It's a big old, like, 230-page graphic novel. It's out now. It's raw. It's like my old school stuff, but I'm still really proud of it, and I hope people check it out.
Awesome. Daniel, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks to our sponsors at Global Comics.